Hey guys, welcome to the Creative Living with Bren Haas show. The tune in the background is the introduction to my podcast show. You can find me on most of the podcast players by searching for Bren Haas or just click over to my website at brenhaas.com/podcasting for all the details. You'll find some fascinating interviews with amazing authors, growers, writers, chefs, so many creative, influential folks on the Creative Living with Bren Haas show. So I'm super excited to connect with you today on this presentation. This is Creative Living with Bren Haas show that plays on my website along with YouTube. Hey guys, welcome to Creative Living with Bren Haas, and this is going to be fun. I have some great footage to share with you today. I have been kindly stalking, a very nice gentleman from the UK, and what caught my attention was his name. He is Mr. Plant Geek. And over the past few months, I've had the honor of being able to connect with him live and on video conferencing and trying to get some great content, which I've had some great content. I just have had some logistic issues and haven't put it out there yet. But now, today, right now, the video is going live. This is my first interview with Michael Perry, who is Mr. Plant Geek. You can find him over on his website at Mr. Plant Geek. Please visit that. He's got all his social media icons up there, and he's a great person to connect with and very patient for dealing with my madness with technology. But anyhow, I'm so excited to share with you today this interview with Mr. Plant Geek. Let's do it. Enjoy. Here we go. All right, we're live. Hey, Michael.
Hey, how's it going?
This is so fun. Now get you on video. This is awesome. Thank you for joining me on my show on here. I've got the Creative and Living show going on, and I'm Bren, the host, and I'm excited to have Michael Perry with me. He is Mr. Plant Geek, right?
I am, absolutely. Yep, that's what I've become known as because I'm absolutely obsessed by plants, and I think that everybody else should be as well.
Right on. I totally agree. And so I'm excited to have you on because I know you from on Twitter. You share some really great things, and you've been all over the place, and I hope we can talk about that in our conversation today. So, okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, firstly, I want to explain the kind of surroundings. I did promise you, Bren, that we could perhaps do this from New York Botanical Garden, but kind of my diary changed a little bit. So what I did is I set up the apartment with this type of greenery. So I hope you all enjoy that at home.
Wow.
So to tell you about myself and where it all began, really, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, spending time with my grandparents in their garden. And I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, you find your parents a little bit embarrassing, and you tend to kind of spend more time with your grandparents, and somehow they bypass the kind of cool factor, and you always, they're babysitting you, or you kind of want to go there at weekends and in the evenings. So I was spending a lot of time with my grandparents, and I picked up the gardening bug from them, and they were growing lots of chrysanthemums and dahlias to show at the local flower shows in the UK, but also judging some shows as well. So they were very skilled horticulturalists. So I really was starting off from that very young age. I remember they were growing dahlias, and we had upturned pots of straw where we caught the earwigs and then had to stamp them out on the ground. And it was the most gruesome thing ever, and something I wouldn't even approve of doing now. But it was kind of all these little tricks of the trade that I learned from that young age. And I remember the very first plant I grew at school, and I went to plant it in my parents' garden. And it was a trailing Tradescantia indoor plant. And for some reason, I felt that I could plant it outside in the UK. And I went to plant it, and I dug the hole, and then I turned around and I stood on the plant. So that was one of my earliest memories. So it really was kind of starting from that young age all the way through school. I was obsessed with plants, again, keeping that secret from my friends because it wasn't cool to be the plant boy. So I didn't tell them anything about what I was up to at the weekends. But then soon took over my parents' garden. I was not only interested in plants, but also interested in making money as well. I was a bit of an entrepreneur. Even at 12 years old, I was selling plants for a mail order herb nursery at the bottom of my parents' garden, or even selling plants at the end of the driveway. So I think I was always destined to have the career that I've got today. So really, kind of those young years, kind of getting involved with plants, it was, the destiny felt that I had to get into horticulture. But when I was at school, I wasn't sure what that route could be. But at the end of school, I went to see the careers advisor, and they suggested maybe a florist or a vet, and I wasn't interested in either of those possibilities. No, neither did I want to be a gardener or a landscaper, so I really didn't know where I was going to fit. But towards the end of school, I enrolled in horticultural college, which is quite near to where I lived back in England, and did the course, which was a very general course about horticulture, and it included everything from plant identification that I was really good at and enjoyed, also driving tractors, which I was very rubbish at. And towards the end of college, I then happened to see a competition actually in the local newspaper to design a garden, which would then be built at Thompson & Morgan, which is the company that I've worked for 18 years. And I entered the competition, I won the competition, and the rest is another chapter that I'll tell you about in a moment.
How cool is that? Earwigs. Ugh, sorry. We get those here too. They're kind of pesky.
Oh.
They're not a good bug, are they? I wonder, they're not beneficial. No.
I don't think that, no, maybe they feed on aphids, I'm not sure.
Oh.
But I wouldn't condone standing
like them if they did. We'll have to ask someone. Or maybe if somebody's watching this and you could tweet us, because you're active on Twitter just as I am. And let's see, your Twitter handle is...
Yeah, it's Mr_Plant Geek, and that is the same on Instagram as well, where you'll see loads of exciting pictures, especially of New York, where I am at the moment.
No, it's beautiful. I like how you have the you're sporting the gear too. Look at that. Oh, cool.
New York here, year of my birth on my Plant Geek t-shirt.
I love it.
Any more of a promotional tool, could I?
Very cool. Well, you know what you're doing there for sure. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about your adventures here in the U.S. You've been here maybe a week this time around, right?
2 weeks, 2.5 weeks by now.
Wow.
Time's gone so quickly because I've been setting up various meetings. I've also had to go to Florida for a meeting yesterday, so I've experienced the kind of tropical side of the US as well as the lovely fall colors which you've got here on the East Coast as well. So
Beautiful.
yeah, I mean, where have I been? I've been to New York Botanical Garden, which looks fantastic at any time of year. I was very lucky to visit back in April, and I've also been back this week and seen a lot of interesting autumn colour. And I can send you the link to my YouTube video as well, where I actually take you through the 10 best autumn and fall plants at the garden at the moment. And
Nice.
sometimes this is where I get crazy just talking about plants for hours, because it's amazing, because you go there and everybody underestimates the fall colour. They just think it's crispy autumn leaves or Acer leaves. But actually, hostas, they almost melt into the fall, and they have this gorgeous yellowy orange colour, and it's amazing. Blueberries as well. Blueberries have an amazing kind of auburn coloured fall foliage. So there's about 10 of those plants that are just incredible and have amazing fall colours. So that was New York Botanical Garden. Also, going to Florida was very interesting because so many tropical plants, and even at this time of year in October, and I was talking to some of the people I was meeting, and they said, oh yeah, it's really warm at the moment, but it's kind of really manageable. It's a lovely summer's day. And I was thinking, this is a very hot English summer day. I can't stay outside for long. It was, and alligators, I cannot believe there are alligators in the lakes. It's crazy. And there's just signs up just casually saying, be careful of the alligators. I'm like, be careful, I'm terrified. It's like crazy. And the plants really, it's strange because growing up in the UK, I've always known all the plants around me. But now, I traveled to Costa Rica in the last few years, also being here in the US now, there's plants that I've never seen before. And sometimes I can't even work out which family they're from as well. And it's a great puzzle, but it's also really frustrating. It's kind of like, what is that? So I was seeing some really amazing ferns that were growing outdoors in Florida. Also, I think it might be philodendron as well, which is kind of cut foliage. And I can't remember the moss, the grey silvery moss that grows in the trees as well and dangles down. Just
beautiful.
actually,
Isn't it cool?
On a walk to the superstore, just 2 nights ago, just these amazing plants, and a lot of plants that I would be used to seeing as houseplants in the UK, to suddenly see them in their natural habitat is just amazing.
I know. I think we talked about that before, because I'm a big fan of different coleus plants, and you would, I have mine planted outside. I've never brought them in my house. I've had them in my greenhouse, and you said, "Oh, they're houseplants here in the UK."
Never. We would never plant them outside in the UK.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, now you might rethink that, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's changing a little bit with some newer varieties that are a bit more weatherproof,
right,
and don't need such warm conditions. There's a brilliant variety called Campfire, which I don't know if you've got that here.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
Oh, the colour is it's copper coloured. It's
yes.
a flower. And so with my grandma, she used to have houseplants on every single windowsill of the home. So probably about 70 plants. And some of those plants I'm seeing great revivals with those plants. So especially with the cacti and succulents that are all over Instagram and Pinterest. Yeah. So the tiger jaws, Fulsaria, the lithops, the living stones. These are all plants that I was growing when I was a kid. And up until 5 years ago, I couldn't find them to buy anywhere. And now they're having this fantastic revival.
I know. It's wonderful, isn't it? Seeing all that. And one thing I want to touch base on too, I think it's neat how you're very active on social media. And I think that will help. Which you have been sharing, like on your Instagram and your Twitter. You're seeing all these new plants. Maybe remind our audience, don't forget, everybody has a phone, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, if you don't know what the plant is, you can take a picture.
Well, there's a lot of, there's apps out there which will actually match the plant to existing plants, which is kind of good, but it's not always that reliable, because it won't then tell you the actual variety. So if you see a marigold in a garden and you want to grow that yourself, it will tell you it's a marigold, but not the type it is. So you couldn't buy that in the stores. But there is a brilliant app that I've been working on called Garden Tags, which is almost, I would call it Instagram for plants, but without the pictures of cats and risotto or paella. So it's really exclusively for plant lovers and gardeners, and it is backed up by an encyclopedia with all that plant information. It also has a task list. There's also plans for the future where it will give you information based on the area you live in, so you'll know when to plant out and when to prune your plants, for example. So a really great app, and it works exactly in the same way as Instagram, but like I say, it hasn't got those pictures of non-plants. So sometimes it's you scroll through Instagram and you want to see plants, but then suddenly you see someone's, kitchen or someone's grandma, and you see all that. So this is
or something you don't want to see.
Them. Oh no, that would be Twitter, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I imagine. But it is a great app. So look out for Garden Tags, but obviously as well, look out and use Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. Whichever social media platform you choose, I'll be there. You'll be there as well. And we'll be there to support you and share our plants with you and get you inspired as well. Because, I know we'll touch on this in a bit, but some of the plants that I've introduced, such as the ketchup and fries plant, when I introduced this, is tomatoes and potatoes on one plant. And kids and teenagers were talking about it all over Twitter. And which other plants would interest teenagers in that way? So it really is a great way to share the love of plants through social media.
Definitely. So people can click over. You can go on your PC or on your mobile device and just put in garden tags with an s.com, correct?
Yeah, .com, and then /download, and you can go straight to the area to download the app. So there are plans to have a desktop version in the new year as well. So you'll be able to view everything on the desktop in exactly the same way you will on the app. So I appreciate not everybody has a smartphone, or not everybody is confident using a smartphone, but we'll have that ability for both. And of course, that encyclopedia will be a lot more useful on a computer as well, because you can really refer to it.
And a lot of great information. You know, I'm big on the Twitter. I like Twitter and using the hashtags. You can use the hashtags on garden tags as well, correct?
So we actually set challenges each day in the UK, the US, and Australia. So, for example, today there's a fall challenge. So we want you to post up your pictures of your crisp, lovely orange, yellow, autumn-coloured leaves. So that is what we're looking for today. But we'll often have special weekends. For example, last weekend was all about indoor plants. So that's a way of sharing with other people and learning more about plants. You can often see conversations that are streaming down the page of people like, whoa, you've got that plant, where'd you get it from? Can I have a piece?
Yeah.
Probably get in touch with each other then, and they then swap plants. So the gardening community is incredible. And even in the UK, there's actually a hashtag, which is hashtag #GTagMeet. And that is where some users in the UK have actually arranged to meet up at famous gardens in the UK. So I'd love to see that happening in the US. But of course,
that would be fun.
a bit more, aren't they, here?
I guess I have a question for you on that, actually. I use the app a lot. I've got quite a few photos in there myself and connected with some pretty cool people. And what's the easiest way to find these challenges that are going on?
Well, the challenges are coming out on, like I said, the UK Garden Tags account, Australia Garden Tags account, and the US Garden Tags account.
Okay.
So automatically, when you join up, you'll be following those. So you will see those in your timeline every day, and we'll be updating at least 4 or 5 times a day to encourage you to take part in the challenges, but also to share what other people have uploaded to the challenges. So you'll get to see, not just the pictures that we're giving you, but also the pictures of your fellow users. So you'll then get to learn what other people are up to. Actually, on Monday, we did, I did the very best, it wasn't even a challenge, it was kind of a celebration. It was a hashtag called Discover the World. And I went into the Garden Tags app and actually chose different users from around the world, about 15 different countries. So from Poland to Saudi Arabia to South Africa, and shared those pictures with the US users. And it was great to see what other people grow around the world and to learn so much more. And this is where the internet and smartphones has made the world so much smaller, and we can learn so much more. And it's just amazing and infinite, and I love it.
Yeah, I know. That's how I met you.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't have known. And I know quite a few garden people, and they were like, "Oh, you don't know him?"
Really?
How did I miss that? I don't know. I'm in Twitter too much.
I'm like the of the plant world,
Right. So,
you're not really.
I know, right? I love your T-shirt. You want to talk about that? Very cool. Look at that. That is cool.
This
you design that?
Mr. Plant Geek t-shirt. So I've had these made up in various different colors. I'm using a company where you can actually get t-shirts made up on order. So I'll soon be releasing the shop details where you could potentially order your own. So it's basically a bit of a Mr. Plant Geek logo. Yeah. And I'm attempting to make this the international sign for Plant Geek. So that is what I'm trying to do with the t-shirt. So I'm gonna steal it off the Chinese tourists and my Chinese friend in order to make this international sign for Plant Geek. It's my year of birth at the base. That's what 1979 is. And I'm looking at various different merchandise that kind of follows on from this. So I've actually made up some badges as well that have Mr. Plant Geek on them. So I actually gave some of those away at one of my meetings yesterday in Florida, and the top lady actually put it on straight away. So she was walking around for the rest of the day with Mr. Plant Geek badge on. So it was fantastic.
That's awesome.
So I'm looking at doing a lot more of this in the future. I've got a really cool range of t-shirts in mind that I think they're a little bit cheeky, but they'll be cool.
I think they're great, and that's great advice for if there's any garden writers, speakers out there that are listening. What a great way to promote your brand and get people to follow your website or your logo there. I love it. That's cool.
Exactly. So I mean, it kind of reflects everything about me. So Plant Geek is the main phrase that kind of sums it all up, really. So I could talk endlessly about all sorts of plants, and I want to learn about plants. And on a more practical level, I want to find plants that are easy to grow for people, or plants for the right situation and the right place. A lot of the times in gardens, we we get very set ideas of what we want to grow. But if that's not working, if you've got a dry, sunny border and you're trying to grow some, shade-loving fern, it won't work. So I want to try and educate people with that. So, it's fun, but it's also got a serious side of getting people to, have a go with growing plants. And you might fail sometimes, but you'll learn from that as well. So it's a lot of fun to be had.
So the 1979, I thought you were younger than that.
Oh, sorry.
That's
That's a compliment, yeah.
I'm feeling really, really old now. I've got 10 years on you. Anyways, but you've done so much. You're so young.
I guess, do you know why though? And I think you're the same. I just say yes to everything. And I just get involved in everything. And that means that I'm just endlessly, barely sleeping and just going here, there, everywhere. But why not? This is life, isn't it?
One life.
Yeah. And so I get the most random emails and requests through social media or on my Gmail account. And I'm just kind of like, most of the time, yes, I'll get involved. It's fine. And why not?
I know, that's very cool. So let's go back. You got me hungry. We were talking about the ketchup and potato, or ketchup and fry.
Yeah.
I grew that last year in my garden. It was a hit. Trellised it up with some bamboo.
Yeah.
And my little niece, who was 4 at the time, she loved it. She would just eat all those little tasty little tomatoes, And then what a treat at the end to dig up, toward the end of the.
Also a surprise. Imagine buying someone that potato plant, the ketchup and fries, and not telling them there's potatoes at the
I know, because when you go to, compost your garden at the end of the season and you pull the plants out, basically you have all these potatoes down below.
You had no idea it was there.
Yeah, no, I knew it was coming, but still, how cool is that?
But that was a brilliant development that I worked on with a Dutch company, and we actually managed to get 30,000 plants hand grafted in the first year. And so on a practical level, it's basically a baby tomato plant and a baby potato plant. You take the top off the one and stick it on the bottom of the other. And because they're both in Solanaceae family, they're both compatible. So they'll grow successfully together, but they'll still behave as the individual plants. So the tomato doesn't suddenly taste the potato, or even worse than that, the poisons aren't transmitted from the potato. The berries on a potato can often be poisonous. So we did all of those tests, and we also selected high quality sweet tomatoes as well, and a later cropping white potato, because if you chose one that was a bit earlier, you'd be wanting to lift your potatoes before your tomatoes are ready. So that's why it was all about the perfect timing, trying to make it more than just a novelty, something that, some people see the plant as a bit of a gimmick, but actually it's a gimmick that gets people growing plants. And that's not such a bad thing. But actually, by the end of the season, those people realize it wasn't really so much of a gimmick, because it actually performed, and it gave you those 2 crops in the one space, so the tomatoes and the potatoes. And there's potential for hundreds of tomatoes per plant, sweeter than you'd buy in any supermarket, and about 2 to 3 kilos of potatoes at the base. So it is practical, but also fun. And
that was very fun. Thanks for sharing that, because I didn't quite understand how that all works. And I'd love to grow it again. You did mention there's another type of combo like that in the UK?
Yeah, we've got the egg and chips plant.
I don't
know if that's made it across here yet, but it's basically an eggplant on the top. So we would call that more commonly an aubergine. And at the base, the chips, which is your potatoes. And that is a brilliant plant, because it was the first time that grafting process had been done on aubergines and potatoes. So completely exclusive, first time. And it brings together a bitter-free aubergine, so one that you don't need to salt before you cook, one that's easier to ripen in the UK, so I'm sure you won't have as much problem here, but it's very difficult to get a good aubergine variety that ripens outdoors in the UK, because our summers are rubbish, of course. And again, on the bottom, you've got 2 kilos of white potatoes. So you've got your ingredients for moussaka. You've got 2 crops in the space of one. You can grow it in containers, on the allotment, in the fruit garden, the vegetable garden, however you want to. So that was the second step of that family.
So cool. I think it would go over well here.
Yeah,
I'll grow it.
I think it would, yeah. You almost named it with you in mind, so for the US market.
There you go. Awesome. So, I mean, you've got a lot on your plate. Do you even get to garden at all, or you just get to enjoy everybody else's?
I'm enjoying everybody else's. I mean, I haven't had a garden since I sold my house in the UK in the summer, so I hadn't had a garden since that time. But to be honest, my life has been so busy with traveling over the last 2 or 3 years that it was just kind of maintenance, and it was never really. It was a great garden, but it was never with the plants I really wanted, because it was always with leftover plants from work, or kind of, and then just planting them where they fitted. So it was never, a design that I kind of chose to do. And, I'm not being ungrateful for the plants, but obviously in an ideal world, I'd have a slightly different garden. And I'd love to have a garden. And there's so many different concepts I'd want to bring to that, such as, patio cottage gardens. In my last few months with Thompson Morgan, I was preparing the introduction of some dwarf cottage garden plants, so delphiniums that were shorter with double flowers, shorter scabious as well, the Bina lollipop, which you may know, which is the dwarf version of Bonariensis. So it was then possible to grow cottage garden plants on a patio or on a balcony, something that people hadn't been able to do, thus far. So brilliant range, and that is something that I would have loved to have in my own garden. But at the moment, my life is a bit more on the road, so I don't mind.
That's okay. You're still gardening. You're virtually gardening because you're sharing a lot on social media. Very inspiring. I'm going to have to look some of those names up. I'm not a master gardener. I just like to grow things, so I don't really know what those were.
Sure. People don't need to be master. And I think that's where horticulture kind of gets a bit misconstrued sometimes, because it's almost seen that you need to be an expert to do anything. But no, you just do what you do, and that's fine,
Have fun.
Yeah.
Just grow it.
Yeah, just grow it. That's perfect.
Very fun. So, oh my gosh, the time's flying here. I know you're busy. You're still traveling. You're going to still be sharing things, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm going to China on Tuesday, and I'm not sure if I might have time to go to Brooklyn Botanic Garden before then. I'd love to visit there. I've never been before. I nearly went once before, but it then poured with rain and I had to come home again. So not that hardy, but I needed to take pictures and make the most of it. But I might go back to the High Line actually tomorrow at some point. I'm not sure, but yeah, High Line is obviously a brilliant place in New York too. And when I visited there back in July, again, plants I'd never seen before. These tall sunflower-like plants that I can't remember the name of them now, but really amazing plants. And
sunflowers, tropicals. What were they?
Yeah.
Were they growing outside or in the conservatory?
Outside, yeah.
They were just a sunflower?
Yeah, and I almost mistook them for Helianthus maximiliani, which is the super tall 2 meter high.
So many different varieties.
I know. And that was amazing. And like it's strange with the High Line because it's about 3 kilometers long, but because there's so much to look at, you don't realize you're walking that far. So incredible.
Just get sucked in.
Yeah, exactly. And I love just walking around the city as well because, the fall colors, and especially you guys use a lot of chrysanthemums as well. And I didn't realize this because we don't really plant for the autumn in the UK. We kind of just abandon the garden at that stage and wait until spring. And it's a real shame. And it's really inspired me to see what you guys do with the fall season. So, yeah.
Lots of fun with that. I know when we did talk before, and one thing I keep remembering is the window boxes. Like you said, there weren't a lot of window boxes in the UK. And I love window boxes.
Because everybody's got a window.
Yeah.
It has to happen. Maybe I need to do that. I'll add that to my list. Yeah.
There you go. Jot that down. So once again, everybody can follow you. Go over, check out your website. Very easy. It's just mrplantgeek.com.
Yeah, that's right. And then that will give you all the links to my social media as well. So that will take you through to Twitter and Instagram, they are both Mr_Plant_Geek. And then Facebook, which is Mr. Plant Geek, all one word. So, but if you just hop on the website, it will tell you how to get to all those other places. And also, I might give you the link that you can include for my YouTube video of the New York Botanic Garden as well. So that would be great.
That's
Added that
awesome.
link into the website yet because I've only got about 3 videos on YouTube at the moment. I don't feel it's substantial enough to shout about yet. So I need to do some more.
But you're everywhere else because I liked the other day I caught you on Twitter and you just showed a quick view outside of I think the conservatory there at the New York Botanical
Yeah,
Garden,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. I've never been there before. It's
Oh,
gorgeous.
it's beautiful. Yeah, it's an amazing place, and I'm really, really honoured to. I've got one of the contacts I visit there who's in charge of an area at the gardens, and so he takes me around in a golf buggy, and we have a look at what's there, and I don't have to walk, which is amazing.
Yeah. So, what besides going to China, which is huge, your brain's gonna explode over there too. There's so much, right? What's the future here? What do you think's coming up?
With career, or yeah.
Yeah, just like I mean, are you speaking or writing a book or anything like that?
I think I want to do everything because I've got so many ideas for books, different blogs, kind of different initiatives. There's various brands that I'm working with in the UK, stuff that will kick off in the next couple of months as well. Obviously, I've done quite a bit of TV work here and there. Hopefully, something coming up in the US in terms of TV, but also more that will happen in the UK as well. So I imagine the next year or so, I may be kind of hopping from one side of the pond to the other over a period of 6 months. So it's brilliant, but it's all because I just keep saying yes to everything. And if I rewind everything back about 8 years ago, I was not confident at all. And I really, was too scared to do anything. And I kind of was like, oh no, I can't do that. But when I worked at Thomson Morgan, there was a great guy there called Paul, and he was my boss at the time, and he was like, no, you can do that. Just go try it. Just do it. And that is how I began, working on directing videos that we shot. That's how I then got the other side of the camera and was presenting shopping TV in the UK as well. And it's purely because I pushed myself. And that, I know it sounds like a really simple piece of advice, but that is the way to do it. You've just got to push yourself and have a go. And what is the worst that can happen? That's what I always
I
ask myself.
love it.
Yeah,
If we can just get all our fellow gardeners to do that, don't be scared. Because I was there before too, which I still make crazy videos. They're not perfect, but the cool thing is I learn from them, and I'm able to share my passion. And everybody can do it. We have our little devices with us, and you just do it, even if it's like a minute. Just share. I don't know anything.
But also the internet has changed everything as well
Yeah.
because we've got all these different ways we can connect. And nowadays you can just go up to a company or a contact and just even be a bit cheeky and say, how do you fancy doing this, working on this with me? And how would that have happened 20 years ago? You'd write a letter, and where would you send the letter? It's changed so much for the better, and it's just incredible and infinite, and I love it.
Right. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun I've never actually seen you. We've done a podcast before, but this is neat. It's great. Thank you for taking the time today. And once again, our audience can find you over at your website,
Yeah, if you go to my
mrplantgeek.com.
website, mrplantgeek.com, you'll then see on the menu there's a link called social media links just in the menu on the website, and then you can click in there and you'll find out all my links to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Love it. Thanks again, Michael.
No worries, thank you.
Here's Bren.
I hope you will click over to mrplantgeek.com to see where Michael is traveling today. And don't forget to connect with me at brenhaas.com for more interviews with creative people, recipes, and gardening ideas.